separate those two. And yeah, so we just wanted to separate those two. And then after that, I decided on not sending out the field day stuff until Monday. We got some folks that are going to be catching up on hopefully some of the work, and I wanted to only send those out to the folks that are actually doing the field day, but we are going to go over it so you guys know what the expectations are. So we will take a look at it and look at what we're going to be going over, what day it is, and where it is, and all the logistics for it. So we're going to start off with a quick little PowerPoint real quick. And so I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So we're going to start off with some size up stuff. So right here on one side, this is our local size up card. And I know they kind of gave an example of size up, fire size ups in the book. This is just our local one. When we get on scene, we kind of confirm where it is. Sometimes we just get like a general location over the radio, maybe some street names. When we get there, sometimes we try to give an address or an exact location once we get there. We establish who the IC is going to be. So if I was to take it, I would say that the IC is going to be ACE, and then we kind of estimate the size. That can be difficult sometimes. Sometimes it can be a real small 1/10 of an acre fire, but sometimes it can be pretty big. And we're unable to see what the full size of it is, but we just kind of estimate, hey, this kind of looks like it's about 2 acres. It could be about 3 acres. And then later on, we get to walk the fire. We'll give them an exact acreage. We talk a little bit about the fire activity, and this is we're just painting a picture about what we see. What does it look like? Is it smoldering, creeping, running? What is the rank? Is it rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? It just means intensity. What kind of rank it is. Then the next one's going to be talking about fuel type. So this really does matter on how fast that fire runs. Is it a grass fire? Is it a spruce or hardwoods? If it's burning in hardwoods, it's probably going to burn a little bit slower. If it's in grass, we know it's going to be a lot faster. Adjacent fuels, so it could be burning grass, but then next to that grass or adjacent to that field of grass, it could be, a bunch of black spruce, which is kind of dangerous. So we need to give the adjacent fuels and what it's burning into. Flame length, we can guess about how tall the flames are. The wind direction, we talked about wind direction in our last chapter. We're going to say where the wind is coming from, and then the speeds. We're gonna guess, and kind of in the IRPG, it'll give you some examples of wind speed. Like if the tips of the trees are moving, it's going to be a certain speed. If the leaves are barely moving, it's going to be a certain speed. So you can look in there for some of your indicators of how fast the wind is moving just by looking. Um, Exposure. So is there homes around, homes in the way? Is there no homes? So is there anything, vehicles, that kind of exposures that we're looking for. And then topography, that's going to change how fast the fires move. Is it on a hill? Is it flat ground? Is there any hazards? How are we going to get in and out of the fire? So access and egress. And then resources, any resources that are going to be needed. Is one engine going to be fine, or do I need to call in our air tanker, our helicopter, our air attack, and our crews? Depending on the size of the fire, we're going to start ordering resources right away to get them moving. And sometimes you can order resources when you're going to the scene, depending on what you see. And then our big one, and we talked about communication, making sure that we tell them what frequencies we're working off of. Our command channel is going to be a certain channel, and then on the fire ground, we're going to have TAC channels, and we're going to be working off TAC channels as well. And we kind of say those over the radio so that the incoming resources know what radio frequencies we're looking at or what we're using. once you get on the fire and get established, you're going to give it like a fire name, Latin long, confirm the size, find out what the cause is. Sometimes we know what the cause is. Sometimes we need to find an investigator to come in and look to find the cause. How long we're going to need there, any needs that we have. Once you get on there, you're just going to be giving them more and more information. You'll confirm how big it is, that kind of stuff. So this is kind of our general briefing card. You can, just look at it. Every area has a different briefing card. They don't all use the same one, but this just happens to be ours. So that when they talk about size up, this is our local size up. Oh, let's click to the next one. So then we're going to talk about triage. They talked about triage in the chapters today, and I've got a little reference material in there a little bit because there's two different types of categories. One that's in the book and what the book answers say, and then what our IRPG says. So I kind of have the differences. But no matter what the triage, we have the decisions are firefighter and public safety. So that's our first and always our first decision is whether the firefighters and public are safe, and then fire behavior, how fast the fire is moving. That's going to determine if we can, save a house or not save a house. Any of the surrounding fuels, how many resources we have. If we have just one engine, we're not going to be able to get around and triage a lot of the houses. But if we have multiple crews and engine crews and folks on, then we'll be able to do more triage. And definitely the structure, the condition of the structure is it got a lot of issues to it. Is it kind of a dilapidated structure, or is it a pretty fireproof structure? So in the book, these are your risks that they have in the book. They have low risk, moderate, high, and extreme. And then in your IRPG, which is a little bit different, we have our structure triage categories are different. They're defensible, prep and hold, defensible standalone, non-defensible prep and leave, and non-defensible rescue drive-by. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. So the first one, the low risk structure, this is what's in the book. And you'll see that a lot of these are the same. So it even has the same verbiage. The low risk structure can stand alone, defensible that requires little or no attention. So this is your low risk. And if you look at the next one, this is the defensible standalone. In your IRPG, the first determining factor is does it have a safety zone present? So that's a really big deal. Can you be in there and be safe if a fire came through? And then the second one is the size up. The structure has very few tactical challenges. It's not there's no fuel around it. If a fire came through, it'd probably be fine. And then the tactics are that you may not even need to be assigned to it. You could probably leave it and it's going to be all good. All right. So in the book, it talks about the moderate risk. And so moderate risk is it might need a little bit of attention. There's still a safety zone present and a good escape route. But you might need to stay there and defend it. We'll go into the IRPG, and the IRPG says still their safety zone needs to be present. There's little, the size up is the structures have some tactical challenges, and the firefighters might need to stay on site to implement structure protection. So they could stay there because there's a safety zone present. All right, in the book, they've got the high risk structure. So there's no safety zone that's present. You might be able to do a little bit if you have time, but you're pretty much might have to just kind of encourage the homeowners to leave and move on to another home that has a safety zone or has needs less attention. So the next one is a non-defensible prep and leave, and it's kind of the same category. You'll see a lot of the things are the same. No safety zone is present. Some tactical challenges. Firefighters are probably not going to be able to stay and protect that structure. And then we got extreme. So this is also the book what the book says, extreme, no safety zone was present. It's got a lot of tactical issues. Same thing, you're going to check for occupants. You'll knock on the door, see if there's anybody there. Tell them where the evacuation center is and that there's a fire going on, and try to evacuate. The other thing that we try to do also is we will at the end of the driveway, we'll put something up, whether it's a piece of flagging or something up that says, hey, this structure's been checked. There's no residents here, or, just some kind of signal that for the next incoming resources that say, hey, this has already been checked. So this is the IRPG. What the IRPG says that there's no safety zone present and it's got lots of tactical issues. So really close is the same thing. It's just a rescue drive-by, checking in on the residents. So some of the things that you need to have for what we call a structure protection checklist, you're going to use a lot of short hose lays. You're not going to use all the hose that you have, but you're going to, you'll probably put maybe a length or two out to protect the home. You're going to keep at least 100 gallons of water in your tank, and that's to protect yourself. You can also possibly use, if they've got a hose that works, you can also fill your tank if needed off of their hose water. We've done that before. Again, determine if the residents are home, and advise them of the escape routes and safety zones and evacuation center, and leave the lights on day or night. It's a signal that the house has been checked, and it also, if you've been in a fire with very thick smoke, it could be a refuge area if need be, if the lights were on. You also place the owner's ladder at the corner of the home on the least side threatened by the fire. So if the fire is coming in from the south, you'll put the ladder on the north end. Coil up a garden hose if they happen to have a garden hoses there. Just make sure that the water is working. And then also you could be tasked with setting up sprinkler systems. And if you are tasked with setting up sprinkler systems in that home, make sure that they're all tested before you leave that area. So sometimes we don't charge them and we're just setting up just in case we have to fill all the hoses. We hook them up to pumps and to either creeks or waterways or even our foldable tanks. But we don't always run them yet. We're just setting up, but just make sure they work before you leave. Identify any hazards. So any big fuel tanks, any pesticides, paint storage, electrical wires, those kinds of things. You're kind of identify and make note of each home. And then if the home becomes fully involved, you leave it and move on to one you can save. And sometimes the house will be just fine and you have to come back through and put out some of the small fires after the fire front has passed. We're going to go into some different attacks. So we have our offensive mode. You can go offensive. You're going straight to the fire. You're able to put it out. So this is kind of an offensive fire attack. Defensive. So the fire is heading that way. We're setting up a structure protection line. We're getting ready for the flame front. You save water for when the flames get there. So don't create a wet line, 20 to 40 minutes before the fire gets there. That stuff's all going to dry up before it gets there. So kind of hold on to your water. Don't waste water. You could burn out fuels if you need be. Just make sure that is bumped up the chain, because whenever we put extra fire on the ground, that needs to be voiced up the chain so that people know that. You can create a safety zone if you need to by cutting fuels and clearing out areas. But if there's too much fire and you can't defend it, leave it and return after the fire passes. And again, you could pick up some of those small fires, because even the flame front could pass through. It doesn't touch anything, but some of those small little fires, little duffers and stuff like that, could burn the house down later on if we don't take care of those. So here's a little combination of both of them. Both the engine is protecting the home. They're putting water on top of the house. They're also put fire on the ground. If you can see, some of the ground is black, so they have burned some of the fuels that are closest to those homes so that the fire cannot pass that area. So they're kind of diverting that away from there. So they're kind of doing a little both combination of offensive and defensive. So it talks a little bit about parts of the fire. You've got your different flanks wherever you've got a left flank and a right flank. The heel or the rear, the origin of the area of the origin. So that's kind of where it started. And then you'll be able to see how it's moved by the bigger flame lengths are going to be towards the head. You have small pockets, you have islands that don't burn. That you can tell that it's a wind-driven fire by the angle of the burn. So it's, you can tell that it's being moved. And then you've got the head of the fire, different fingers according to the terrain and the fuels and how it's burning. Sometimes you'll get these little fingers. And then if you've got extreme fire, then again, you have like spot fires. So this is kind of the diagram that this is kind of the main parts of a fire. These are some different attacks that we use. This is kind of the main attack that we use on most fires is kind of the anchor, flank, and pinch. You go to, the anchor of the fire, which is the smallest, has the smallest flame lengths, and then you're gonna take either 2 engines, 2 crews, 2 personnel, 2 resources, and go around on each side, the right and the left flank, making sure that it's all black behind you. So you're flanking the entire fire until you pinch it off in the head. So slowly working around, making sure your back door is safe. So this is just a flanking attack, meaning you're going to one side. So all the resources are going on the left flank of this one, and they're just working around until they get back into, going in a circular motion. All right, so we got an indirect, so we're not going directly to the fire and like burning the fire, but we're putting a control line out in front. So when that fire gets to that control line, it's going to stop because it doesn't have any fuel. This is done a lot. We have lots of different ways of doing it. You guys probably read about it in your book. We have everything from scratch lines to big dozer lines to using fire to make black line, using wet lines. We use retardant lines, or we even use foam. There's all kinds of different ways to stop fire. If you work down in the lower 48, they use a lot of dozers. And this is how we stop that extreme fire down in the States. They have large fuel, big trees, lots of brush. And this is how they stop fire, is mostly with dozers. All right, so we have a parallel attack. So that's just what it means. You're going parallel to it, going in, burning that fuel between the control line, off the control line to the fire. So kind of getting rid of all of that fuel that's in between. So this is kind of a parallel attack. Big part of fire is cold trailing. I think we spend most of our time cold trailing. This is what we call the meat and potatoes of fire. We go around the entire outside of a fire, depending on the size. Sometimes we'll go through the entire fire. If it's like a 5-acre fire, we'll go through the whole thing and make sure everything's out. If it's a large fire, we'll go through the outside of the fire and pretty much get in a grid line, which is a line of 10, 20 guys at a certain distance apart, and just move across the landscape, putting our hands in the dirt, making sure that all the little pockets of heat are taken care of. That way the fire doesn't kick back up. This is, like I said, this is the meat and potatoes. This is how we call a fire out. If we've gone, 100, 200 feet in off of a fire, all the way around a fire, we can call that fire controlled. So this is what we do a lot of. Another thing that we do is we'll remove fuel using saw teams, and we'll cut all the fuel in the path of the fire. So we'll go in and cut brush, cut trees, cut everything down so that the fire doesn't have anywhere to go. We talked about retardant lines, so we use our retardant ships to come in and dump retardant out on our landscape. And our new tanker can carry 2,800 gallons of retardant and can drop it in different increments at a time. But it's a lot of retardant now, so we use that as control lines as well. And that's just a real quick down and dirty of those two chapters. I'm gonna stop sharing again. All right. I'm gonna go over the field day real quick, and then we're gonna get into the Jeopardy. Just so if we have extra time in the Jeopardy game, when we're done with the Jeopardy game, we can ask questions about the field day. So I'm gonna real quick share again my screen, just switching it up. We'll open this up. All right, so we're gonna go over this field day a little bit. This is just kind of the document that you guys are gonna be getting. Um, it's gonna be on May 1st, on Sunday, May 1st. And you'll come into the Palmer office out here in Palmer. It is, if anybody knows where the airport is, that's where it's gonna be. You'll get a map that shows kind of where we're located at. You'll come in, you'll start at 10 o'clock. We'll meet in the engine bay. We'll do introductions. We'll share that shelter video, which is what you'll have to have. Everybody has to see the shelter video every year. We'll go through some paperwork and we'll go into our pack test. Our pack test is that 3 miles, 45-pound pack under 40 minutes. We provide the weighted vests. And then we'll let you know what the route is, go over a safety briefing and everything before we do that. As you get done with your pack test, we'll go right into a shelter deployment. Then right after you've done your shelter deployment, we'll take a quick half-hour lunch. It's kind of a working lunch, so I want you guys to make sure that you bring your lunch. We'll be just sitting in the engine bay while you guys eat. It's just a good thing to do after you've done a pack test. We'll be sitting down, going over a lot of things. We'll go over kind of our PPE, what we have in our line bags and our extended bags. So if you go out on a fire assignment, you'll kind of know the things that you need to bring. We'll go over your IRPG, which you guys will receive one of those. We'll show you where the 10 and 18 is. We'll go over LCS, hazards, urban interface. We'll go over some of that stuff within that IRPG. And then we'll kind of go over a day in the life and what we do as technicians here. Like this is what we do in the morning. This is what we do in the evening. This is how we kind of run our shifts. How we do briefings and stuff like that. Then for the rest of the day, we're going to go through some stations. We're going to spend about 40 minutes at each station. We'll go over mapping, communication, we'll go over all our hand tools, we'll do water handling and even firing devices. We may or may not be able to do some firing here at what we're calling PAQ. So we might be able to do some firing, but we're just not sure yet, depending on the weather and if things dry out enough. And then we'll do our closeout. You'll get some of your certs from this, and then we'll answer any questions and everything. So things to remember to bring. Make sure you bring some extra set of clothes, some shoes, because you're going to be getting very sweaty and during your back test. So bring an extra set of clothes, some workout athletic shoes, and your lunch. Other than that, we'll provide everything else. If we do any burning and stuff like that, we'll provide your greens and everything, or your greens and yellows, so your Nomex clothes. And then if you do have boots, some leather boots or something, you can bring those as well if you just happen to have them. So you guys will be getting that email probably on Monday. We're just kind of waiting on a few students to catch up so that we know who we're going to send those out to. Does anybody have any questions real quick about the field day?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Does anybody have one? That heard somebody.
None
right.
that I can think of.
Okay, and you guys may have them later, and that's kind of why we bring it up because I always get a lot of questions about the field day. So you may get, I'll probably get some, later on. So just if you have any questions, just write them down and then we'll bring them up later. All right, we are gonna go into our little Jeopardy game. We're gonna do just chapter 5. So I think one of the guys are gonna set up getting you guys in your teams. I think they're doing it, hopefully. You got that going, Tommy or Summer?
I can if Summer didn't do it. I can do it right now.
Copy. Go ahead and have it. We're gonna start that Jeopardy game.
Okay. Bingo, bango. All right.
How's it going, guys?
Doing good.
Good. All right. Okay. You guys haven't worked with me? Same thing. We're just gonna everybody just list it off and we'll answer the questions. James, go first.
Yes, sir. Size up 500. Safest route to the incident.
Up.
Size up 400.
Thank you.
A.
Chris, you got one?
Sure, I'll do tactics for 500. B, smallest flame lights.
Yep. Jeremy?
Size up for 100.
Went outside and started clicking my radio, and it's like, I'm not getting dispatch at all.
Size up.
C. Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah?
Handline 400.
Oh, whoever said that. Handline 400. Fine.
Natural fire lines.
Yep. Sarah, you want to give me one?
Fire identification. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What'd you say?
Tactics 400.
Thanks. Sorry, there's a fire and they're just not shutting up.
Um, Indirect attack.
Yep, good.
Do fire identification for 500. So I want to say safety zone, but that's not what they're talking about.
Anybody have any
Control
guess?
the lanes.
It's safety zone.
It was safety zones. Okay,
I know it's a trick question.
yeah.
Fire identification for 400. Length? Flame length?
Yep.
Inline 500. Pumping and rolling.
Yep.
Size up 300. C, first arriving on scene.
Yep.
Fire identification 100. I just drew a blank.
Anybody want to help them out?
Point of origin or origin, area of origin.
I think it, yeah, origin or heel.
Tactics 300. A.
Do size up 200. A.
Yep.
Fire identification 300. Finger, B.
Good job.
Do hand line for 300. Hey, the fire is out.
Good job.
And line 200. Unfinished temporary.
Good job.
Tactics 100. Direct attack.
Yeah.
Fire identification 200. Head deep.
Attach X13. A.
This is a tough one. Anybody?
D.
D.
Hand raised.
Tools.
There you go. Good job, guys. Do you have any questions for me before we head back to the main group? Okay. The other group has a couple more questions, so we're just gonna hang out here for a minute. And if you guys think of anything, you can ask me before we get to the rest of the group.
Hey, Tommy, I know you guys are done, but the other group has still got some more going. They had some questions. So while we're in here, does anybody have any questions about like either this chapter or any of the field day stuff or anything like that? Nothing? You guys are kind of a quiet group.
Nothing.
Nothing. I hear nothing. All right, I'll wait and see where the other class is at or the other group, and then we'll head back to the breakout or to the main room.
Robin, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I work for Girdwood Fire Department. How frequently do people get called to be supporting staff on wildfires in Alaska when you have your red card?
So it kind of depends. It depends on what you want to do here. So we have the EFF program where we come in, you're put on that list and you can come in whenever, we need folks or when we call you up. So that's one way of doing it. The way we utilize Girdwood is we have on many fires, specifically like the McKinley fire and even the Sockeye fire and any the Montana Creek fire, we've brought in several engines from different areas, including Girdwood. Or other areas, even AFD has come in and J Bear has come in. And so it kind of really depends on how you want to utilize your red card, I guess. So as of Girdwood as a whole, they could come in, if we have a large fire, they'll come in as an engine crew. But you can do EFF and stuff as well.
Okay, and do you need pretty good availability then? Because it would be pretty last minute, huh, if you got called out?
Yes and no, depending on the situation. Sometimes we're in pretty desperate need and say we've got some folks that we bring on some folks that like work on the slope, say they come work on the slope and they'll come in and they're like, hey, I've got like 5 or 6 days. Okay, we can throw you on the engine to let some of our folks like take a day off because we can only work 14 days or 21 days in a row, then we have to start taking days off. So we do that sometimes, or we'll just need a couple people to like jump on the helicopter or do a couple things where it's just a couple days here and there. So that that's a possibility. Or if you're thinking more long term, hey, if you're going to go out on the EFF crew, we need you for 14 or 21 days, and that is a kind of a quick decision. That's usually like, hey, we're gonna get all your stuff together and we're gonna meet here at 8 o'clock in the morning and we're gonna head out. So, you know, it's flexible and it's not, you know, if you really want to go out on cruise and stuff, then you got to be available all the time.
Copy that. Thank you.
Yep. Do you guys got any questions?
Yeah, just I got a question on what
Yeah.
Sarah was asking. Who hires red card firefighters? Like what are different areas that I could get hired
So,
on at FFE?
So that's what I do. So that's my
Mhm.
job is I hire on all our emergency firefighters. And we depending on what the situation is, we could go through and hire on a whole 20-person cruise, you know, out here.
Mm.
They just passed in the Senate, they just passed a thing to where we can have emergency firefighters work off of grants. And that's new. Normally they can only work off of like a high fire danger or a fire number. So that's how
Mm.
they get paid. Now that we have a lot of funds in our fuels, so fuel mitigation, cutting down trees, doing clearance, doing, you know, burning piles, that kind of stuff. We're waiting to get the okay to hire on an entire 20-person crew pretty much full time so that we have them doing fuel mitigation and then we also have them in our back pocket if we get a fire.
Nice.
So that's what we're looking forward to in this year. We're not sure how quickly we can get that together per all of our overhead has to okay it because that law was just passed, you know.
Mhm.
So it takes a little while to get all that ready and then hook up with our fuels guy to find a plan to put those guys to work. But I do all the firing or the hiring here in the Matsu Valley for that. But in the spring next year, so most of the hiring is already done for our crews. But from around the end of December through the beginning of March, our hotshot crews and our type 2 IA crews hire. And you can get all of that information off of Workplace Alaska. So if
Mm.
you're interested in one of those crews, and normally we have them come in and talk on this class, but they're going through their 80 hours right now. So that means
Mm.
they're all pretty busy doing their stuff. So just kind of, you know, bad timing. They're able to come on Friday. We do have the North Stars crew boss that's going to be coming in and talking. So as long as he's not too busy, he's going to come in and talk to us. So that's, you can get some kind of your questions asked, and that's a pretty cool pickup crew that works. They're all training, and normally at the end of they're done with the North Stars, they get to go to these, you know, all kinds of different shot crews. They'll kind of like once they're all trained up, they get them out on some of these bigger crews. So
Mm.
it's a good opportunity as well. Cool. Good questions. All right. We got any more?
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So being a first responder out here you know, the rural areas, what would being called out or dispatched on a call and having a red card, would that get you paid or?
Yeah. So the way it works is, especially out near, because you're out in Chickaloon, correct? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had a fire, especially in that area, then what we would do is that, you know, we would dispatch the closest fire department. So that would be you guys, and you guys would come in, and then you would work for the first, you know, shift for your department. So you get paid through your department. Once that first shift is done and we decided to hire you on for the entire fire, then you would use your red card that you have, and you'd be able to be hired on, whether it's we hired you on as an engine, or we hired you on as a crew, or we put you on as even like a water tender or whatever. That's when you would utilize that red card, because we would be paying you versus your fire department being paying you.
Right.
So
Okay.
hopefully that makes sense. All right. I think if I can hear, I think they are almost done over there. Is there any more questions? Those are actually really good questions. All right. All right, I'm gonna mute myself for a second and then I'm gonna see if the other guys are ready to bump back into the other room. All right, we're gonna go ahead and head back to the main room. All right, I think we got everybody back. All right, so that was chapter 5 for the Jeopardy, but we kind of went over 5 and 6, and then we'll go over 6 Jeopardy in the morning. That way we're not giving you guys too much. And just make sure you guys catch up and have everything, all your units done, 5 and 6 done by tomorrow morning, and then we'll be moving on to 7 and 8. In the evening tomorrow, I think David Camacho is going to jump in for me to help lead. I'm actually teaching another class and I don't think it will be finished in time. That class starts at noon. So I kind of double booked all my teaching. So he's going to be coming in and filling in for tomorrow evening to go over 7 and 8. All right. So do we have any final questions for this evening about anything? Everybody seems pretty quiet. All right. So like I said, if you guys come up with any questions, make sure you write them down and bring them to us. It's a whole lot different us not having in-person class. I think I'd get a lot more questions if we were in person. So feel free to ask any questions that you guys have. I know it might be a little bit awkward being online, but that's what we're here for. So always feel free to ask us anything, whether it has to do with our jobs or employment or the field day or any of the stuff that's in the book. All right, so tomorrow morning we'll go do the Jeopardy for chapter 6 and then we will assign chapter 7 and 8. All right, guys, have a good evening and we will see you in the morning. If you need to stay on for anything, just let me know or we'll be here. So stay on if you have any other questions. Have a good night.